Welcome back to Geeks and Grounds, a monthly game club and weekly podcast where we play games and brew good conversation together. I am your host, Jenny Wyndham.
And I'm Joel Thomas.
I've got my Fields of Mystria cup of coffee. You look like you're being much healthier than I and drinking water.
Yes, because I literally just finished drinking coffee with a friend. So
Perfect.
Yes, I'm all coffeeed up, baby.
Nice. And like a cafe, this is the place for us to gather, talk about games that we're playing both individually as well as the game that we're all playing together as a community every month. This month is Firewatch, and this is an interesting month because we're sort of going a little bit off the path and in the game, but also in real life because our episode structure usually is one game a month. This month, Firewatch is so short. I was like, you know what? Why don't we just do a bonus brew? We're going to talk about
bonus brew.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Thank Goodness You're Here next week as just a little one-shot episode. And then we're taking the final week of August off because PAX West is happening. I'm pretty sure Joel is probably traveling somewhere as well. I feel like we both have travel just the next, I ended up counting and it's like about 5 weeks if I'm including one event that's here in Portland, but I'm going to be staying at a hotel with some friends just to not have to commute. So we've got a busy early fall of travel and work. So sorry for any of the fluctuations. I'm going to do my best to communicate here as well in the newsletter and in the Discord, everything that's happening so you all are in the loop. But things are just going to get a little bit more on your toes this month. We're going to just, keep things a little lively, which is fun. How does that sound, Joel?
I'm totally in. I just am glad to have someone that I get to listen to, a voice in my ear, if you will, that I can trust, that I won't be betrayed by, that they won't leave me in a big smoky fire by.
What
I just love
be talking about.
It's nice having that voice in my ear that's deeply trustworthy, Jenny.
Wow. There is nothing related to that. There is no undertone or secret. This is just a random, honest, trustworthy conversation we're having.
Yeah.
There's no secrets. Yeah.
Not informed by anything else that's going to be discussed today.
Yeah. So before we get into what that could be about, as always, if you are listening on Spotify, give us a rating. That's always super helpful. We appreciate it. And for those who watch on YouTube, we love the comments that we get. So yeah, keep them coming and thank you all. Before we get into Firewatch, what have you been playing, watching, listening, or reading to?
I have 2 outstanding TV and movie recommendations. Things that I have consumed in the last week that have been absolutely stellar. So the first, only about half the season is out right now. It's called Sunny. It's on Apple TV. It stars Rashida Jones. She's living in Japan in this kind of near future time when robot helpers are around, and there's kind of a murder mystery thing happening, or conspiracy type thing happening with a huge conglomerate organization kind of thing. It's giving me the y'all know how I love those Lost vibes where it's every episode I get 5 new questions about what's going on. This is absolutely giving me that. The style is incredible. The color palette is so good. So far, halfway through the season, would highly recommend this show. I'm super enjoying it.
I really enjoy her in most everything she does. So, and I am with you. Anything that gives me more questions by the time the episode or the chapter is done, that for me is premium content, premium art. So, yeah, this is perfect.
It's actually very similar to how I felt playing Firewatch, where after each day I had new questions about what's really going on here. And so I know I have a type, but this, since a lot of people in our community are maybe of a similar type, would recommend Sunny at this point. It's been
I think we're all there with you. And I especially love that they have, I'm looking at the Apple TV website right now, and underneath it they have Severance as a related media to like look out for. And as a huge Severance fan and evangelist, I am very excited by seeing that. So yeah, I'll be watching that for sure. What else have you been doing?
So I also last night watched a movie. I think it's about a year old now. It's called Space Sweepers. It's on
Mm-hmm.
Netflix, and I think it's maybe from a Korean production company. And but the thing, it's hard to tell because it is multilingual. Like people will speak their
Interesting.
native languages all throughout, and there's a lot of people because it's like a future sci-fi type thing. They're on space stations, and basically they have translators that are always running. So it's like they get to speak in their natural language, and we get subtitles for everyone to kind of follow along.
Mm-hmm.
If you like Cowboy Bebop, if you like Outlaw Star, if you like Firefly, like the type of like actually very much like the Citizen Sleeper, like kind of an anarchist period where like a major
Uh-huh.
organization has undue influence over the world. This is that, but in a I think like 2.5 hour long movie. Joy, I was laughing, there were some
Love
big
it.
emotional moments. The action was so cool. Like the opening scene is like all these spaceships trying to like grab this kind of hunk that's flying through space and is going to destroy a spaceship, and like there's
Hunk
a
like debris, not like a
oh
hunk.
no, a hunk like a really like John Stamos in the 90s.
I'm sorry, my brain. And you'll know why in a second when I talk about what I've been into. But like as soon as I hear hunk, I'm like,
Ah,
hello.
hello, beefcake. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, there was literally in this opening scene, there's like a robot on top of one of these spaceships with a harpoon, and he like launches the harpoon to like wrestle, I don't know, this thing down. Like it was so cool. This movie was great. So if you're into the sci-fi space thing, like would highly recommend Space Sweepers.
Yeah, so I went on to Netflix and I totally agree. The thumbnail key art that they have looks like it could be Citizen Sleeper. Like the style for sure is there. And apparently I put this on my watch list and I totally didn't know. So this is great. This has also one of the actors from Descendants of the Sun for any K-drama fans.
Mm.
So pretty awesome cast. Looks like. So I will be watching this for sure. This looks really good.
Yes. Anytime I can influence Jenny into watching something,
Hmm.
I feel like I have succeeded.
I'm very
Uh,
easily influenced by your suggestion.
yes. Jenny, what have you been getting into though?
I will start by one thing I did not get into, unfortunately. I tried really hard to read Nine-Tailed.
Mm.
It's the book I said I started last week. High hopes, Korean folklore and folk tales, meeting sort of mystery, paranormal romance. Like I was in, the premise sounded amazing. Oh, very like I didn't even get a third through the book when I was just like, I can't do it anymore. For
Oh,
me, and I would love to hear from anyone who did enjoy it because perhaps maybe I missed something or perhaps it just develops later on. Also, it just may not be my cup of tea. I think for my taste, the pacing was a bit too fast. I like the slow burns and the world building prior to romance. And so it was like from the jump, you just kind of got into the romance and the tongue swirling in someone else's mouth and like the lust. And I'm just like, I've barely met the main character. I don't know who this other person is. Like, this is all moving too fast for me. So I think that for me was like the initial, ooh, I don't know. This could be it. And then I kept going a little bit further to see if perhaps we had a quick start and then a little bit of a burn before another, spicy moment. It was just a bit too fast and not enough lore. The writing felt a little bit stilted to me, so
mm.
I just had to put it down, which was really unfortunate because I was really hoping that it would resonate with me, but it did not.
That's a
So if
bummer.
anyone's got any good recommendations for books that blend folklore, a little bit more world building, I love a
Mm.
little spice, but just got to give it some like foundation first. Please let
Yeah.
me know.
And you have read Naruto or just following up?
I have not actually.
Interesting.
So maybe
Interesting.
I start the Naruto. Should I read the manga? Is that what you're recommending?
I have no idea.
Oh,
I have no idea. I feel like It
Just
can't.
chaos gremlin.
Yes, I just like to stir the pot. You know how
Yeah.
it goes.
Who knows? Maybe I will try Naruto one of these days. What I have been getting into, and what has been truly given me the slow burn romance that I have wanted, folks in the Discord already know, Fields of Mystria. I talked about it last week. I'm going to talk about it again this week, and I'm probably going to talk about it again next week because it's giving me everything that I ever wanted in a farming sim, and I'm obsessed. Like my Steam Deck sits next to me now while I work so that if there's ever a downtime bit of moments, I can just hop in and play like a day in game. I can't stop thinking about it. The mechanics, solid. And it's an early access, which I normally do not like to engage with because when early access, you're getting an uncompleted game. And the developers are always upfront about it. They usually have a roadmap, which this team has already pushed out, of like what they're planning to do and when. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, I want to play the game when it's done. I was so excited for this. I said, you know what? I'm going to just do it. Maybe I'll play for like a weekend and then I'll wait until full release. I'm going to be playing this until I'm going to play this forever.
I'm gonna play this till I die.
I'm going to play this till I die, until like pry the Steam Deck from my hands, because what I love about this game the most, I think mechanically everything's there, everything feels good. That's fine. The character development is so strong when you interact with the characters in this game, whether it's like the villagers that you can't romance versus the villagers you can. They not only remember sort of different events that you trigger with them, and they'll reference it maybe later on when they're talking to you, like, hey, remember when we did that thing? That was fun. But also other characters will be like, hey, I heard you and so like had a tea party, or I heard you guys went and did this. I love this. Or if you put like a bug into the museum, because they have a museum where you like collect things, kind of Animal Crossing style, I would say. You put a bug in the museum, then someone comes up to you and they're like, I saw that you put like the stag beetle in the museum. That's one of my favorite beetles. It's just like, it makes the world feel so much more alive than I would say 99% of other farming sims out there, where they just have either the same dialogue, maybe that changes once per season, or the same dialogue that doesn't change at all. I'm sorry, Fae Farm. I really wanted to love you. It just didn't happen. And so, yeah, if anyone plays Fields of Mystria, I hope you enjoy it. I feel like you probably will. And I am currently romancing everyone, but right now, March is giving me the like, not quite enemies to lovers, but definitely like he's giving the reluctant, I don't like you sort of vibe. And I'm just like, yeah.
The Darcy treatment.
Exactly. I'm like, ooh, he's so rude. Yeah.
You can be honest. Like, be honest, Jenny. Like, this is a safe space. Are you romancing Blathers?
No, I am not romancing Blathers. There is a character who is like super duper into archaeology and museum stuff, though, that you can romance. He's a sweetie. March is definitely like, oh, what is that trope? I'm blanking right now. In anime, when you have someone who's like, oh, golly, this is gonna, I'm sure someone is listening to this and knows exactly what I'm talking about. When you have a trope of someone who's like rude to you, but they actually are a big softie and they like you. Oh, this is killing me. I will remember by the end of the podcast. If not, someone please just comment it below right now. If you're watching on YouTube or in Discord, just tell me what it is, because it's killing me. But anyways, I digress. It's just such a good game. I'm obsessed with it. Talk to me about Fields of Mystria. Thank you.
Get at
for
me.
your time.
Very cool.
Oh, and then I guess the last thing, I am watching a very nice, wholesome show. It's called The Boyfriend on Netflix. Have you seen it? I feel like you would dig The Boyfriend. It's a reality TV show. So I'm like the reality TV trash gremlin, I know. So this is a queer show. Guys all in a house together, and they have to co-run a little coffee truck, like a coffee cafe food cart. And they get to know each other by working shifts together, which I think is hilarious. They're on this reality show and they're working, but it's very cute and wholesome. They like make coffee together, get to know one another, and they're looking to find their next boyfriend. And a lot of them are super cute because they're like, I also just hope to make other like gay friends here because it's kind of hard because we live in, you know, a society that maybe makes it harder to make friends, especially if you're gay. And so it's really cool to like see that just whole side of things. It's really fun, the announcers and reactors, because in Japan they typically have like reactors to the show who like
it's a
add
Japanese
commentary.
show.
Yes, it's a Japanese show. I should have led
Got
with
it.
that.
Okay.
But it's really cute because also they have like folks who are reacting to the moment and adding a little bit more context.
Always love that.
Really, really fun. And it's just my end of the day. I just need something wholesome and cute to watch. I don't have to pay too hard attention because it's reality TV. And it's just very, very sweet. So far, there's not been drama. I'm sure there will be because it's reality TV. But I also know it'll probably be much more like, I think, subdued
Realistic drama.
and realistic than the drama you see on maybe Western reality TV.
Well, the last time you got me into a reality TV show, a Japanese reality TV show, it was Terrace House, which became my deep, deep obsession for several months.
Yeah.
Years? It was a long time. So it sounds great. It's called The Boyfriend?
Yes. Yeah, The Boyfriend.
Add that to the list. Very fun.
Yeah.
Always looking for the next trash thing to get into.
Honestly, I'm here anytime you need me.
Fantastic.
I am the reality TV trash gremlin. Like, I love it. So just to wind down the pastry case for this week, notable releases in the world of indie games. We have one release on the 14th, Love Ghosty. Speaking of little romance games, this is an indie that's about like you're a ghost who sets up dates between inhabitants in this building, like apartment complex, essentially. Very cute, very adorable. And then we have a bevy of releases on the 15th. As always, further details and links are in the newsletter that goes out on Wednesdays, sometimes Thursdays. So be sure you're subscribed to the newsletter at geeksandgrounds.com. But for a quick read through, just so you know what's coming out this week, we've got Dredge, the Iron Rig DLC, Odada, which is like a really fun little music sandbox game, Just Crow Things, Gordlets, Farewell North, and I Am Your Beast, which we talked about a couple weeks ago.
That's a packed list this week.
It is a pack. The 15th is busy. So get ready. If you are playing any game right now, finish it up, enjoy, which we'll be finishing Firewatch. So this is like the perfect time to check out another game to jump into. And yeah, let's put a little bow on Firewatch, shall we? Let's extinguish this fire. We'll try. It's only it's 2% contained though, so we'll see how far we can get.
Y'all, I am hurt. I am broken. I am
Oh no.
My trust is at an all-time low. And I cannot wait to talk about this and see if Jenny can pull me out of the pit of despair that I have fallen into.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So where did we end? We ended basically about over halfway through the game, a little over halfway through.
So.
And we had gotten to know Delilah. We know we are Henry, a man who is escaping the realities of his everyday life, specifically the reality that his wife, who has dementia, is needing more care, does not remember him consistently, and he needs an adventure. I think specifically he even said, like, I need a breath of fresh air and a little adventure. And he's gotten the adventure. We ended where things started getting a little bit fishy, a little bit suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
Did you
and also on kind of a romantic high note, right?
Yeah,
at the
a little
very
bit.
End
yeah, a little bit of romance
session.
and flirtation happening. Yeah, we had the fire that started. I think I had named it the June fire. Did you also name it the June fire?
Yeah, I think I tried to name it the Delilah Fire, and she
Yes.
forced me into the June Fire,
Yes,
which
that's
I
what
thought was
happened to
very
me
fun. The
too.
joke they made about like you're calling it the June Fire, but it started in July. I was like, chef's
Yeah.
kiss, fantastic writing. I love
Yeah.
that.
The dialogue, honestly, we talked about this last week, but the dialogue is very, very good. And also
Mm,
the voice acting that gosh, I need to look up the names of both of them because I know Delilah is Sissy Jones. Um Henry is Rich Sommer. Both of them did an outstanding job. And I just want to reiterate it again because I think it is one of my favorite maybe voice acting instances in games. They just made it so real, like so
yeah.
conversational.
This is the year of that for Geeks and Grounds. Like between this, A Thousand Times Resist, like the writing and voice acting in the games we've been playing this year have been incredible. Like
Hmm.
I am so blown away. And I know that like for especially for a lot of indie games, like that is an expense. And so like taking the time
Definitely
and
is.
effort to like have like voice actors and use that medium of storytelling, I know is pricey, but like wow, for this game, it has been one of the most immersing experiences I think that I've had playing a game in a while. It's like
Hmm.
that voice acting is just incredible.
Yeah. So we begin on day, I believe, 76.
76.
Henry's like, I'm going to go fishing.
Mm-hmm.
But Delilah wants us to take care of a bit of a problem that has come up. There's like bear tracks, or there's a problem bear around, which I'm just like, what are you expecting Henry to really do? But Henry's like, you know what? Fine. I'm down by the lake. I'll investigate, look for the tracks. And I think this part was really cute because Delilah was like, okay, thank you. Bye. And it was just like, you could feel the camaraderie. I think whether or not you're romancing Delilah, whether or not you're just taking it as like a very close,
Yeah.
more platonic friendship, it is, there's no doubt that there is this connection and this chemistry between them. And I thought that was just one of my favorite moments where she's like, thank you.
The
Appreciate you.
chemistry is so
Bye.
there. Yeah, that
It's
was
so
so
good.
good. I gotta say,
Hmm.
I am at this point, we talked about this in the last episode, skeptical of Delilah. I'm like,
Yes.
I'm romancing you because I think that's what Henry would do. And also, I am not trusting. And so she's having this conversation about like him going fishing, and she's kind of like dissuading him in some ways, like giving him a
Hmm.
hard time about it. I was like, does she not want him to go fishing? Is there something around the fishing
Hmm.
area that she does not like, or
Hmm.
like doesn't want him to get involved with? Because we already know, like from the last time that we talked, that like she is keeping information to herself that she
Yeah.
is not sharing with Henry, and so
Yes.
I'm not trusting. And then we have this one of the most intense moments of the game, I would say.
Yeah.
We approach,
Describe,
yeah,
walk me through it.
we go down that same path we went through on our first day. We're walking towards the lake, and as you get there, you see things that should not be there. You see a clipboard that seems to have notes about you and Delilah's conversations.
Hmm.
I can't read my handwriting. It looks like Caliger. I don't know what that is. Is there a picture maybe that we see at one point?
Yeah. I wonder what Caliger could be.
Oh no, I don't know. I took a picture of the clipboard
Oh,
because we talked about
okay.
last time. Oh, what if the reason that we are getting the instant camera is to capture the evidence of what's happening?
Once again, you are much more big brain than I am because I was just literally at this point, I didn't even think about collecting evidence. I was looking at this clipboard thinking, "Oh my god, what's going on? This is actually quite scary. Like if someone is watching us and tracking our movement and our conversations, let me take a picture of the lake because it's beautiful or the sunset." I am so like would absolutely not survive in a murder mystery if it was real. So that's what I learned about myself.
Well, you did the right thing, as we learned at the end of the game,
Yeah.
because the taking pictures does not lead to you capturing any evidence. Although I will be telling you all the things that I took a picture of to try and like establish
Nice.
uh, uh, an alibi as a part of this.
Hmm.
Because the concern is if someone's listening to you, then they overheard the conversation between you and Delilah about the missing teens.
Yes.
And that is scary because that could be manipulated, yada, yada. But before any of this happens, before this comes to light, before you start thinking about the significance of someone listening to your conversation, you cross the log, you see a radio on the ground, and after you bend down to pick it up, someone bashes you over the head and you get knocked out. I literally jumped out of my
this
seat.
Jump scared me. I was so shocked.
Ugh.
Oh my gosh. So we know for sure, like, there is something very wrong happening, because like the teenagers wouldn't do that. First of all, like that wouldn't, that's not the teenagers. There was that or not the hidden figure, the like mysterious figure. And so my mind instantly was like, that mysterious figure and this person are one and the same. I have stumbled into something that I definitely should not have. And now there is mystery for sure afoot.
Yes. And I will say, we get another moment that really bothered me and that really like made me question Delilah's character, because you get knocked out. And when you come to, they've taken the clipboard, they've taken the radio. She doesn't really believe you that something has happened. And it's just like such a wild thing to imagine. It's like these two have an established rapport and bond. And if I had that relationship and like I was your Delilah, Jenny, and you told me about this, I would be like, get out of there, like go to your truck, like this is not safe, like immediately.
I'm gonna ping like the fire department. I don't know who you call this, but like, you know, I'm gonna ping my superior so we can get you out, get someone investigating. Yeah.
And the lack of trust there was like, it's one thing for her to be questioning the thing with the teens, because that was like in the first few days and like she does not know him, but like we're 76 days in now, they have an established rapport. I was really frustrated by that. And I felt like, again, like it made me think that Delilah is in on this, because it's like, she's trying to keep me away from the lake. Maybe that's why this guy is there and he had to flee and they left, whatever. And now he's attacking to try and like pull this stuff back, and she's trying to diminish it. And I was like, that's the only thing that makes sense to me for why she would act this way.
Yeah. I was like, it definitely does not stack up. And at this point, because I was a little bit iffy on Delilah, because there have been enough flags where I'm like, I don't know, things don't quite line up, but you know, we're talking over walkie-talkies, we're all kind of private people, like escaping what we need to. Sure, I can like let some of it go, but this was the moment where I was like, no, that's not, like, that really isn't great.
No.
And I think after that we cut to the next day, if I'm remembering correctly.
There's a bit more. At least for me there was.
Or at least because you start walking back, I guess, and you have to walk back through like the ravine area.
You get the Wapiti Station piece here, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
So you learn that there's this place called Wapiti Station, which we learn is perhaps behind the fence. You go to the fence, it's locked, and you can't climb over, which is so come
silly.
on, dude.
There's a big rock, and I'm like, I know you're not that in shape, but like, you know, you're not a super proficient climber. He's fallen multiple times. You just got hit in the head. But there was a rock we totally could have jumped over.
Yes. And like, you're telling me, like, I looked, there's no barbed wire. It's a chain link fence. Climb over it. Come on. Unacceptable.
Come on, Henry.
Come on, Henry. But we're immediately like, okay, like this is somehow connected, and you are going to go find the fire station.
Yeah, the firefighters. For some reason I put this on the next day. But you're right, this is all the same day. And this is where I got a little bit lost, I will say. I spent so much time walking around the vast meadow, looking at trees and snow machines, which was really great lore, but it took me so long to actually get to the place I was supposed to go.
Agreed. I will say, Jenny, if you had not told me about how to use the map in our last episode, I would not have finished this game.
I'm so happy.
I would have been so lost. I would never have found this place. Like, I was just sitting there, like, I was playing it on the plane, and I was just like, thank God Jenny told me about this, because like I was like, okay, I'm taking 5 steps. Yes, I do appear to be going the right way. 5 more steps. Yes, I appear to be like, that map was in my hand the whole rest of this game.
That's so funny. I'm really happy that helped.
So we do find some interesting landmarks. You mentioned you find some snowmobiles in a mud pit where the engines had been stripped. You can find the medicine wheel, which looks like some sort of like native relic that was kind of left over there in this field. And you also find the abandoned firefighter camp.
Right.
And there you find a memo from one Dr. Ben Simmons describing their concern that this fire is going to approach Wapiti Station, yada, yada. So we know that these people have pull. They are somehow able to communicate with the firefighters. And you get an axe, which, yay, we have some sort of thing. But then you get this really creepy moment as you're walking back, talking to Delilah, where someone coughs on the radio line.
Yeah. And both, oh my gosh, Henry and Delilah, of course, are like, was that you? No. And I'm sitting there just like, this is real. Like, because also up until this point, I'm wondering,
it's all in Henry's head.
Like, how much of this is just, isolation and being alone? How much of this is Henry and Delilah like feeding into something together? But once we as a player hear the cough on the radio and it's not either of them, it's like, okay, whatever's happening, there is someone else on the line who's not making themselves known. And that's not cool. That is suspicious.
It is suspicious. You detour. You decide to go lock down in your little fire hut. Lookout tower, I believe is what it's called.
Yes.
Your fire hut. And I gotta say, this is again where I was like, it's another moment where I was like, y'all, he drove his truck here. Why are you staying? Like, it is so dangerous. You don't know what's going on. It was shot. It was like one of those moments where I was like, this is too much for me to believe. Like, I can't accept this.
See, I think part of me, if I was Henry, I would be so scared. But I also would be like, okay, I feel like Henry and Delilah in experience, and this touches on maybe some of the larger themes and the ending that we'll talk about.
Yes.
I think that while this is terrifying, it makes them feel special and important.
That is true.
I think there's an element of we wanted it, like Henry wants an adventure. He's getting an adventure, and he is like I think a strong main character in his own head figuring out this mystery. And so I think for the purposes of this game, I was able to, for myself, believe that they would stick around because I think they want to feel this level of importance and specialness that maybe they weren't getting also. Henry specifically, we don't know about Delilah, that they weren't getting in the outside.
That is a brilliant interpretation of these characters and their motivation, Jenny. I love that. I'm going to adopt it. I'm just going to steal that whole cloth. Excellent. That's so smart.
Great.
God, that's good. So we do wake up the next morning after locking ourselves in our fire hut. And
which is, by the way, so weak. I'm like, if someone really wanted to come for you, though, like, that is the most shambly thing, easy to break into.
Someone's already broken in once.
Yeah, someone's already broken in once. You're not really safe here. To your point, for sure.
Yeah. There are some interesting things for me when you wake up the next morning, though, because there's a raccoon poster on the wall. A bunch of the books are now in your library. So it's like, now that I thought this was going to have a lot more significance than it ended up having. I thought this raccoon thing was really going to be like some sort of thing, but it was a red herring. It was a raccoon herring. Unfortunate. But you get this kind of message from Delilah after several failed attempts to talk with her, where she's like, she uses a poster to help you find a tree so that you can find a new radio and you guys can talk freely again.
Yeah.
Did you have any doubts? Because it sounded like he had been trying to reach out to her for a bit and she wasn't responding. Did you kind of trust her that she was like trying to handle business, or were you like, I'm skeptical, she's involved, something's going on?
I was a little bit skeptical. Again, because of this third voice that we heard, the coughing, part of me also did wonder, because we heard her talking to someone else very, very early in the game. I'm like, she could have lied about being like, what was that? If she was in on it, to make you feel like you were aligned with her, whereas maybe she does know that someone is on the other line and she's just trying to cover for them. Again, I've been watching The Mole as well on Netflix.
I used to love The Mole.
So
God,
also,
I love that show.
it's like, is that mole behavior? You know, that's the question. Like, would a mole do that? And it made me, it made me wonder. I'm like, because Delilah could have been truly scared. She could have also been covering for this other person. And again, like, if we were both in a fire lookout situation, something like that happens, I would be on the line with you every single day, being like, hey, what's up? You okay? Just checking in. And the fact that that didn't happen is kind of weird.
Agreed. Incredibly suspicious.
Yeah.
But you get the radio, you find out her intentions, you start talking, and you guys kind of agree that you're going to go break into Wapiti Station and see what's going on. I will say our predictions were correct, that Delilah, even though we both requested her to, she did not call in the teens. So that's where they start putting the pieces together. That's like, oh no, like this is going to look really bad. Etc.
Which I think we both said to do that. And so it was a little bit like, I was happy that Henry was like, come on, I told you that we needed to do this. And I was like, yes, thank you, Henry, for like kind of sticking up for yourself a little bit, like right here, because that was not cool of her to do that. Just point blank.
100%.
So we end up hiking over. We get to Wapiti. It takes a bit to get in. We have the axe that we got from the other camp. So fortunately, we're able to break our way into the fence. We open a mailbox, or did you open the mailbox that had like the bee or mosquito or something? You get stung. And there's a note left in there that's saying basically like, hey, we're not here for the summer. So contact this person, you know, if you need anything. Which,
like, the government, it says the government owns this equipment.
Yes, but they're not here. And so that is also a moment in time where I was like, okay, so whatever's happening here, it's not sanctioned by, I would say, the government or whatever entity that's supposed to be running this place. So just put that in your back pocket for later, I guess, is all I have to say for now.
Okay. Yes. And these days start going really fast after this day, because like you can basically, you find yourself at this base camp, and there is extremely advanced communications equipment. There are files on you and Delilah with stuff about you that you didn't share with Delilah, which means not only have they been listening to your conversations, they've been researching you. You find a new way to like track down radio signals. There's an earthquake communicator thing. They've been doing soil
there's
sampling.
Like a soil grid, which is like what I did in archaeology class, you know. So it's like they'd been doing some sort of analysis there. And it is very weird. Like, they do have some notes of you and Delilah. Like, there's a black box, which is like special box for you and Delilah. And they have notes that like you are or Delilah is reliable, observant, charismatic, selfish, skewed perception of personal history. Henry's says fully engaged by supervisor. All signs point toward full cooperation, yet trust yet to be scientifically proven. So it's like, what are these notes? Like, and they're in a special black box, which I also thought was very weird. Subject may be aware of test. So that was another one.
They had scores for their ability to be manipulated. Henry was a
Mm-hmm.
9 out of 10 for manipulation. Delilah was a 3 out of 10 for manipulation.
Yeah.
I'll,
Um,
I'll also add there are 3 cots in this, and they
yes.
specifically talk about that. There are 3 cots in this station, which is very
Mm-hmm.
interesting.
Yep.
Anything else that kind of stood out to you about that site?
There is the option to tell her about her notes in the files. Did you do that?
I did.
Yeah. Oh, dang. I did too. I was hoping maybe you didn't just to see if
Oh,
because I was like,
I'm a communicator.
I was like, but you don't trust her. I was so sure you'd pick no because you were like, I'm suspicious of Delilah. So I was hoping you would pick that so I could give the
I'll be
opposite.
honest. Actually, it was when they started seeing notes about Julia, because I found the notes on myself first, and I think when I saw
Mm-hmm.
that they had notes about Julia that you did not share, that I was like, this is bigger than Delilah. Like whatever's
Yeah.
happening here is bigger than her. That
Mm-hmm.
made a big difference for me with how I was going to like interpret the rest of this game. Actually,
Interesting. Okay, so at this point you find this stuff, you're taking that receiver with you, the beeping receiver that can track like radio wave signals.
Mhm.
Um but basically you're like, okay, we got to head back to Two Forks and, figure out what's going on. As you're walking back, not only does the bridge collapse behind you, but as you turn and you look, you see that that lab is now on fire, which is bad for numerous reasons. Environmentally, not great. Like if the Rangers were to come back or whoever is your supervisor or
Mhm.
Delilah's supervisor is like, hey, what's going on here? Does
Mhm.
not look good that there's another fire that you were just at. But it's also very suspicious because that means someone was close enough that they knew you were there. When you left, they set it on fire.
Yes. And you had a joke, at least I did. I joked about setting a fire to the camp. Like Delilah was like,
Yes.
oh, you should set a fire. I was
Yes.
like, I'm not going to do that. Basically, was my
Mm-hmm.
response. And it's like, well, the fire happened anyway, but there was now this communication that happened, which
Yeah.
is going to come up because the next several days like are a flash
Mm-hmm.
as you move through this. So many like little moments happen. I'm wondering like what stood out for you. Like one big one is you start finding little like like audio cassette recordings of your conversations with Delilah
Yep.
that are being intentionally left for you. And some of it is like, oh, like this is incriminating, or oh, this has been manipulated so that it sounds like something incriminating happened even though nothing happened. But like to me that was a really big moment because it implicated both him and Delilah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think after you head back, um, seeing the cassette tape, it like super threatening and manipulative. Like that was so horrifying to know that there is this recording of you taken out of context
Mm-hmm.
that could be incredibly incriminating on top of what you're already concerned about with the teenagers. Um, I think this is also the point where you're following that wave receiver and you find a backpack or a bag that has a key to it.
Mm-hmm.
This was also my second major jump scare of the game personally, where when you find that you're like following the beeping and there is this like alarm that goes
Yes.
off, it scared the living daylights out of me. I
Yep.
was like,
Same.
what did I just stumble into?
Big same.
Um, but yeah, it's the key to the cave and like a light camping bag with like some supplies in it. So again, it's weird because it's like someone has either left this here for you or perhaps they accidentally left it there. But this is the key to that one place that you had passed by on the very first day
In the
walking
caves.
to your camp. So
Yes.
I think at this point, the next step was for us to go into that cave and see what was going to go down there.
Yeah, and it is from this point on that the game stopped making sense to me, and I'm gonna need your help.
Okay, I'll do my
So
best.
big beats of the story are you make your way into the cave, someone locks you in, but not with a
Mm-hmm.
new lock. So I don't understand why you couldn't just use the key to get back out. That was weird to
I
me.
know. Maybe Henry's hands were too big to like go around and unlock. I don't
I don't know. It was weird.
know.
So you have to go through the cave. You see a shoe that's there, but you do find your way to uh, Brian, the little boy Brian that was I can't remember the last name, but that came with his dad to stay at the Firewatch a couple of years back. You
Right.
find his little like hideout. There's a bunch of cool little kid stuff there, video, like a Game Boy, and the Dungeons and Dragons equivalent they call Wizards and Wyverns, which I thought was great. A journal about how he doesn't want to go climbing with his dad, or like a little note, so he's like hiding the pitons there, so that his dad won't make him go, which is like such a perfect like teenage kid move.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely really enjoyed all of that.
Yep.
Anything else that stood out to you with the like Brian's little like hidey hole?
Let's see. Yeah, I think there was a really sad, dark comic that was in there as well, where it was like, I think the superhero was called the Black Band, and the caption or the little speech bubble that the character was saying was like, "Kill my family, it makes me stronger." Like, it only makes me stronger. I was like, that is dark for a child's reading
Yeah.
material, honestly.
Hmm.
I think there was also a postcard where Brian, like, there's a note about him needing to start school soon, or like going to school. And it seems like Ned, like, you get the vibe that Ned really wasn't like the most with it kind of dad. Like, he has taken his son to this Firewatch where he's not supposed to be, because kids aren't supposed to be there. School's ostensibly starting soon. He's not putting his kid into school. So it seems like there's some interesting sort of additional lore, I guess, or background we're getting to their relationship and what Ned was like as a father. I do think what's interesting is, as you're walking and discovering this little hole that Brian's made for himself, the radio doesn't work. So throughout this whole thing, you're not able to communicate with Delilah. So this is also one of the few times that we've encountered that Henry is learning all of this information without Delilah, whether for better or worse, influencing how he's interpreting this stuff, which I think is a very interesting point, because we've had her voice with us the entire time.
Yes. And then you make your way back into the cave again at a
Mm-hmm.
different level, and you actually find Brian's body.
Yeah.
It looks like maybe he fell or was crushed or something along those lines. It's kind of unclear if it was an accident. I think Henry assumes it was an accident based on kind of like what he's
Mm-hmm.
finding there. But you then make your way out and you fill Delilah in on everything, and you can tell that she is devastated. Like she is
Yeah.
immediately holding herself responsible for this young boy's death because she let him stay there, which is against policy, yada yada.
Mm-hmm.
She's also afraid of the consequences of having allowed this, in addition to all the other stuff that's been going on. Like,
Yeah.
it was a heartbreaking scene. So you talk about the voice acting, man, like the lines, like Delilah's delivery of this whole piece where she's like really starts grappling with that.
Mm-hmm.
I was in tears on the plane, like just listening to her process through it. Like
Yeah.
I was gutted listening to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. It is really, really tough. And I think what's really interesting is, it's at this point, Henry, I think we see this divergence where Henry's kind of like, well, let's connect the dots. Like, what's going on? What are all these things? And Delilah's kind of like, I'm done. Like, this is just a really big, like, this is a tragedy. And I'm just done with this whole, like, let's connect the dots thing. This
Mm-hmm.
is just a horrible event that happened. And we need, like, you can see her also starting to figure out a way to escape again. She's like, I just need to go. I like need to figure things out. And I think it was really interesting to see that Delilah was kind of ready to be done with this adventure that they had both created together, and Henry was not ready to be done yet, which I thought was very fascinating.
Yeah, I fully agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
That said, you get to the next day, and basically, like the fires have gotten out of control. You're going to be flown out, like evac, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And before we talk about what happens with Delilah and Henry and like the big ending there, I gotta talk about the revelations that come before that, because you
Mm-hmm.
wake up the next day, there's beeping on your little transponder receiver thing. You find another tape, and it is Ned directly talking to you, Henry, so Brian's dad, and like basically saying like he's keeping an eye on him, like something about like Delilah is a record you never flip or something
Yeah,
like that.
I wrote that down as well.
So
like
fun.
that's a really great line, honestly, about Delilah.
Tries to explain that like this was all an accident that happened, but that he also knows that like he was not a good father or whatever. And you eventually do find his like hidey hole where he's obviously been like creating and using like the batteries from the snowmobiles to, or the engines from the snowmobiles to like create transponding materials, whatever. I don't understand. My interpretation of what the game was saying is that Ned is behind everything that's been going on, the Wapiti station, etc. But that doesn't make any sense. So I need help understanding, did I miss something? What is Ned's connection to Wapiti station, if anything? What is going on here?
Okay, here is my interpretation. As always, for anyone listening, if you have different interpretations, please share them, because that is the beauty of doing this, is that
That's
we
why we do
all
it.
can take in information. It comes out differently. And what's beautiful is that with many of these games, it does leave it open to interpretation. So
Yeah.
we all may be right in our own ways. So what I have here, and this requires us to rewind a little bit, Ned and Brian, they are spending the summer together at this fire lookout. It seems like Brian did not like climbing. Like there was a note Brian wrote about how he didn't like climbing, but he was going to try to like kind of maybe appease his dad because his dad wants to take him out. What I think happened is Ned took his kid out climbing, and he said, we don't know because Ned's a bit of an unreliable narrator. He not only has been sort of this hermit, I suppose, sort of living kind of on the run, like on his own in the forest, scavenging for what he can by himself. So we know that he's got a little bit of like PTSD. We know that he's been living on his own. He's an unreliable source. But what I think ultimately happened is they had a climbing accident. Ned perhaps blames himself. I would assume somehow blames himself because Brian didn't like to climb, decided to, instead of come forward and say, I brought my kid here when he wasn't supposed to and had this horrible accident where my kid ended up dying, he decided to escape. So he's almost this like extreme representation of Henry in terms of like, what do you do when you have a problem? He's running away. He like chose the ultimate Firewatch escape, and he like lives in the forest on his own as like a hermit.
Genius. Your brain today is on fire.
I don't know. Again, please, I may not be right, but what I think ends up happening now, fast forwarding to present day, Ned's been on his own, living in the woods. I think it's like the last 3 years or so, 3 or 4 years. He has probably tapped into the radio comms because that's how he's like keeping an eye on like what's going on, where he can maybe sneak some stash stuff from, survive on his own. I don't know how he would do it, but sure, he'd probably figure out how. He used to be a fire lookout. Henry comes in, and I think because Henry arrives and starts this like chain of events, that makes Ned panic and start to think, okay, and I think he has it in one of the notes, and I should have taken a screenshot or written it down, but I think Ned actually starts to write like, oh, it's kind of amusing, Henry and Delilah, like they think something's going on, like funny, but you know, a little bit worrisome, because I think Ned's worried that he may be caught and held accountable for what happened all those years ago with his son. And so I think what he starts to do is plant things and arrange it so that Henry and Delilah feel like they're part of something bigger. And what he's hoping to do is drive them out. So the break-in, Ned. I think you were right. Looking back now, I think Ned cut the cord instead of the teenagers.
Oh, certainly.
I think you were absolutely right. I thought it was the teens. I don't think it was it, but you were right. I think actually the destruction to the teenagers' camp, Ned. I mean, the person who bashed Henry in the back of the head, Ned. I think Ned was behind all of this. Wapiti Station was weird because I was like, how could have Ned done that? But that note is, they're gone for the summer. I think what Ned did was he knows that they're out for the summer. He plants, because we know that he has access to these places. He knows that it's there. He wrote down fake notes, put it in a box, and left it there for you to find. I think it was all planted. And so that was Ned's very extravagant plan to get you out of the fire lookout space so that he wouldn't get caught. But then in setting the fire, he forced, I think, authorities to come in. But I don't think he's caught. He doesn't get caught either way. But I think this was all a really elaborate plan to like get away from the responsibility of his actions even further, or not to get away, to not have to face his actions.
I can join you on 99% of this.
Mm-hmm.
Where I cannot join you is the planting of the reports. Yeah,
there was only one, though. There was only, because they each only had, I think, 1 page per person, which is like not a report. Does that not make? Like, I don't think that was it.
But how does he know the stuff about Julia that was not ever discussed with Delilah?
He broke into your, I think what he did is he broke into your place and like was able to get all of this stuff.
He read it on the stuff that you were typing.
Yeah. So I think everything was Ned from the jump. This is my theory. Again, I don't know if it's true, but this is what I think.
That is brilliant. That is brilliant.
Thank you. I tried.
Because like where I was so stuck was like, what I felt like the game was saying was that like he was somehow behind Wapiti Station, and I was like, it just doesn't make any sense. The 3 cots, the different types of experiments happening. But if it's actually the experiments are all about the soil and the earthquakes or whatever,
right?
And he just planted these like 2 reports about Delilah and Henry, and he had the notes from the break-in about Delilah, about Julia. Mm-hmm. That would make sense. That was the missing piece. Ugh, yeah. Jenny, you have single-handedly redeemed this game for me, because I like this was bothering me so much that I was like, it just doesn't make sense to me. I cannot grok it. So you've plugged my hole, my brain hole.
I'm so glad I could help. Yeah, I do think like it's a lot. Like I'm like, Ned, this is a lot.
It's a lot, dude.
It's a lot. But again, we have some really interesting sort of counter or just like foils to one another through this entire game. Like Delilah, Henry, and Ned are all escaping, and they're all choosing to do so to different levels of extreme. I feel like we get foils between like obviously Julia and Delilah, which we get really interestingly again later on, because jumping forward just really quickly, when you go to the Thoroughfare lookout, Delilah's lookout, you actually see the drawing that Delilah did, which is a great sort of like, what is it? Cherry on top to the experience, because you start the experience looking at the drawing Julia did. So I think this game parallels and sort of interweaves a lot of the same themes with different characters to show like the different ways and interpretations can go. So really, I think an incredible job with it.
So let's talk about the big ending, right? So the helicopters are coming to do the evac. Mm-hmm. You have, at least I explicitly asked Julia to wait for me to meet her. Mm-hmm. And did you do the same? I'm assuming
I did. Yeah.
You get to the tower, and she's not there. And it was too painful for her. Yada yada. So first of all, running the route to get to her tower was scary. Oh. I was scared playing that. Like the smoke, and like where we are in Oregon, every now and again, like the smoke from nearby like forest fires we can see, and like turns everything red and really spooky and whatever. And so like I feel like I've experienced enough of that I was like, I've experienced this miles and miles and miles away from the nearest fire. This guy's experiencing this really close to one of these fires. It was such a like scary moment navigating through that fog and then coming up that the person that you're expecting to see is not there. Oh,
Like truly devastating, honestly. Like just the you have this sort of anticlimactic it's not anticlimactic in the sense that it's not significant, but the big conspiracy that you thought you had wasn't a big conspiracy. And so almost the last thing to hold on to is this, well, but if I can just like get to the other lookout in time, at least I can meet Delilah in person and like we can conclude this together face to face and like really just finally put a true bow to the end of this adventure. And yeah, not seeing her and just my heart was broken because you want them to be able to meet. But I actually thought throughout this whole game, but especially in this moment, these walkie-talkies, because this game takes place in like 1988, 89, like, yeah. So we haven't had the advent of like internet in the way that we have it now, but it reminded me a lot of like how internet friendships sometimes can be, where you make really close bonds with people. You've never seen them face to face, but then sometimes they are just like, they just don't log on again anymore. Like that happened to me on like Neopets, on like Gaia Online, a lot of places. Even like as a streamer, you have folks who like come through in your streams, are regulars, and then sometimes like you just realize, oh wait, they haven't shown up in a few months. Like I wonder how they are. And it was like that feeling of like, oh my God, I don't think I'm ever gonna hear from her or see her again. It was just like this really different sort of grief that I experienced going to that lookout and knowing she wasn't going to be there, like, or seeing that she wasn't there. It's really sad.
That's really sad, Jenny.
It was
I
really
have not
sad.
had that happen to me before. So that is.
Oh, really? Oh, well, I mean, that's a good thing. But just like, I think, especially being sort of terminally online, fortunately / unfortunately, like you get that where it's like, especially in communities where people go in for like specific purposes, it's like, I remember for Neopets, it's like once someone stopped playing Neopets, they're not going to log in to the forums. And if you only know them through Neopets, it's like, you're not going to encounter them anywhere else. And it's just kind of one of those, like, I guess they were the Delilah of my life and I was the Henry, but I'm sure I was also the Delilah for someone else, you know? So it's like really interesting to see that played out in sort of analog form via the walkie-talkies.
Man, that's such a sad. I've not thought about that, and that is very sad. And also, the ending of this game was very sad. And like, I wanted it to have this kind of hopeful ending, and instead, it felt kind of like a you don't get that resolution, you don't get that closure. No. And God, I thought it was really hard.
I thought it was really hard as well, but I really liked it. I liked that it did not give us that really nice sense of closure. Like they didn't end up together. You have the option to, because at the end, you know, Henry puts on her headset and is like, anyone there? You know, just sort of resolved and resolute because he knows Delilah's never going to see him in person. And you have the option because he's like, well, here, or Delilah's the one who suggests it. She says, well, what's next? How about I decide for you and you decide for me? And so when you're like, okay, Delilah, what about when you try to give Delilah's ending, you can ask her to visit you in Boulder. You can say, hey, why don't you come to Boulder and we can figure out what goes on after? And I picked it because I was like, that is going to, I think, be the most interesting response. And it's heartbreaking because she basically says, yeah, sure, I guess I could come by. Like, I'm going to go to this other place, but I could stop on by on my way south. And you know she's never going to visit you.
It was
a
shoot down. Absolutely. Yeah. She shot you down.
Never, ever would visit you ever again because you remind her too much of this horrible, horrible thing that's happened to her.
You're just like tying the bow for me because like I was not noticing these character foils and I was not noticing the theme
Mm,
about running from problems, but like connecting the dots of like these three people that are actively trying to get away from hard memories as Julia is incapable of having memories is like oof. Like
yeah.
oofa doofa. That's the storytelling. And because you have salvaged the Wapiti Station thing for me, I can now fully engage and be like 10 out of 10 game. The heartbreak was heartbreaking, but it was also that like deep sadness that I love in a good story. Absolutely incredible.
hmm I will say, I wanted to highlight a line that I wrote down that I thought was just really, really good. And it's not even that like revolutionary, but Delilah says, bad things happen, and you have to find a way to contain the damage. And it's really interesting, especially coming from Delilah, because I think there are multiple ways you can interpret containing the damage, where it's like, do you contain the damage by like actually stopping the fire? Like, do you contain it with the intention of stopping the fire? Do you contain it with the intent of like just letting it run
Mm.
its course? Like, there's so many different ways you can take that, depending on even looking at the three characters we have and how they chose to contain that damage. So I thought that was a really, really great line closing out the game.
Yeah,
I'm also curious, did you notice the wedding ring? And did you pick it up
I did.
and put it
And I
on?
did.
Okay.
So, okay, to be fair, I didn't know I was going to be putting it on. I thought I was just picking it up. And
Okay.
actually, that kind of bothered me because I was like,
Interesting.
valuing this artifact that represents
Mm-hmm.
this person feels right. It feels like the right thing to do. Putting it on felt like the wrong thing to do, and you didn't get a choice. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like that. That bothered me. Um,
Interesting.
yeah.
Going back, would you not have engaged with the wedding ring to not have put it on?
No, I think I still would because it feels more true to the character for Henry.
Mm-hmm.
Like ultimately I think that's what it was. Like they are forcing a character moment on you, like
Yeah.
by saying that I still value this memory, you lose any further agency on that, and now you are watching the
Mm-hmm.
character Henry show you how they value it and
Yeah.
puts it on. But I was like, to show up at this meeting, which you think you are doing, with Delilah wearing this ring just felt really strange
Mm-hmm.
to me, and like not it didn't ring true. And so
Didn't ring true. My goodness.
you're very good, Jenny. You're very, very good, Jenny. You're very, very
You said it,
good.
not
You're
me.
very good. So yeah, I think for me it's like it's too important as like a driving element of the characterization to not pick up, but I just
hmm
it bothered me that you put it on. I don't know, can't really
Yeah.
explain it beyond that.
I hadn't really thought about it like that. Like, specifically putting on the ring as you're going to meet Delilah. And now that you've said it out loud, I also am like, actually, you're right. I do have some feelings about that. But I also agree that I think it is true to the character of Henry, the way that I played Henry, at least, to
Yeah.
put it on. And I think also if folks listening are like, I did maybe saw it but didn't click on it or didn't put it on, I think clicking it puts it on. So I saw it but didn't engage with it, or maybe I didn't see it. I think that also what's really cool is that this game leaves it open enough that Henry also could have, you could interpret it as Henry intentionally leaving it behind, which I think is a very, again, really fun part of this game, to
You
grapple
yeah,
with.
like you get to choose what the implications of that are, which I think is
hmm
very cool.
Yeah.
um oh, we didn't also say this, but like the teens were fine.
Yeah.
The teens were not in fact murdered
Yes.
in the
They were
woods by
okay.
Ned.
Yes.
They were just harassed.
That's a really good, make sure to note.
Let's
Yeah,
put a
good.
bow on that.
Yeah, that's a good note. Um, yeah, I think what's also interesting, we mentioned also Julia, what she tells Henry to do is go back. Or, no, sorry,
Delilah
Delilah
go back.
tells Henry, go back to Julia. And I think she says something like, give me a sexy accent if you choose to write about this whole experience. Which is both funny, but also one of those like, I feel like you're using a little bit of humor to deflect from this whole thing. And I
Yep.
can feel you already pulling away. I can feel you
100%.
already saying, this is now a memory in my book that I'm going to probably tell someone else about in the future when they get to know me.
Yeah. Totally agree. 100%
Yeah.
agree. Man, this game, the emotional depths of it, the way they played with the motifs and themes, which like you're bringing to light for me in this episode in a really big way. I'm just incredibly impressed. I'm incredibly impressed.
Same. I'm really curious as we wind down this discussion. Let's talk about the credits, because the game doesn't end, at the ending. You get the credits, and they are the pictures that you take, mostly. They start with the pictures that you take. I'm curious because you went in taking pictures thinking they were evidence. What was it like to look back at them with the new knowledge in your mind?
Really sad, because I wanted, like, if I had known that it wasn't going to be at all relevant, I would have taken pictures of the pretty things. So it was kind of a bummer. But I remember watching it and I was like actually so frustrated that I stopped watching the credits, because I was like, dang it, all of that work that I put into remembering to do this, it didn't mean anything.
Interesting.
So is there more after the credits?
Not after the credits, but during the credits. So the game begins with your pictures, but it's a disposable camera, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
There have been pictures already taken on that camera. So after you get through the pictures you take, you see Henry, actually, because when you first pick up the camera, it like sets off a picture. And so you see his face, kind of a deer in the headlights moment, because you get sort of random selfie. And then you see pictures of the little cave fortress, a kid's hand holding a little dinosaur figurine. You see a picture of Ned. You then see, I think, a picture of Brian. And then you see a picture of Brian and Ned sitting at the bottom of the steps of the lookout, which absolutely wrecked me. I was like, I had gotten like choked up during the game, but I hadn't actually cried. And seeing that in the credits, I was just like, finished. Yeah.
I'm actually deeply grateful that I did not see that now, because I would have been crying in public again. Classic Joel.
Please,
yes.
It's not a plane ride unless you've cried is really what my motto is, because I seem to pick the saddest media to play or watch every time I'm on a plane.
I wonder if people who listen to this show are like, wow, Jenny and Joel live this jet setter lifestyle where they're always on planes playing our Geeks and Ground games, crying. The saddest jet setters.
I was gonna say, oh my gosh, we are the saddest jet setters. So gosh, I think that is it for our discussion thoroughly of Firewatch. We are going to be having our hangout at the end of the month. So Saturday, I believe it's the 31st. Let me actually look up on the calendar right now so I don't misspeak. If you're listening to this, also, we had the community vote, and this Saturday, as of this recording, on the 17th, we're having the Makeup Citizen Sleeper discussion. So if you thought you missed it, guess what? So did we. So we're having a makeup this Saturday if you would like to join, 3 p.m. Pacific. And just to make sure I've got this, I'm looking at the playthrough guide for Firewatch. Oh, actually, I lied. I'm looking at the calendar, and past me realized we were going to be out of town because of PAX. So we won't be having an official discussion for Firewatch. So apologies, but I think that's probably the best, because traveling and trying to do this can be rough. If anyone in the Discord wants to just meet up, feel free to.
Do it.
I will never stop that. And in fact, I highly encourage it. But we'll have no official discussion that's in person, but that's why the forums are great to share your final thoughts on Firewatch. I'm really curious, Joel, as we wind down this game, any takeaways, Any highlights, memorable moments, just things that you'd like to use to conclude your time with it?
Oh, it's what you do to me. I think this is one of the most well acted games I have ever played. And
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciated this story and these characters and watching how they form connections. I am incredibly grateful that you broadened my mind in like 8 different ways in this conversation today, like things that I had not even occurred to me. So really grateful to you, because I am like, this is now gonna be just like one of my favorite games. Like I am so thoroughly impressed by this, and a game that gave me a lot of mystery. And now, because I have a smart friend that was able to plug some brain gaps for me, the way they pulled that story together is just so wise. Like I'm so impressed. So yeah, I think that's just my general takeaway is like, I'm in awe. This is now a top game for me.
Wow.
How about you?
I think what I think is really interesting about this game is how sometimes as human beings, we have really tough stuff that we have to face. And sometimes we can face it head on, but sometimes we can't. And that's okay. And I think it's really interesting that sometimes in the face of these really hard challenges, we try to find connections and meaning in other things. And sometimes those things maybe don't actually make sense, but they give us the comfort we need in those really challenging times. And so, yeah, that's just, I think about that a lot. And I thought about that a lot while playing this game, is like the ways that we try to make meaning when we are faced with things that we can't necessarily make meaning of. And I think that's really powerful for a game to just approach that. And I love that they leave it open-ended so that this game is what you make of it, which is kind of how every situation is in real life. It's like, to a certain degree, your interpretation, your meaning of it is going to be the meaning that stays, because that's how you experience it. And I could see myself playing this game at very different times and probably taking very different interpretations of Henry and Delilah and like the end of this game. So yeah. And just
Absolutely.
a shout out again to the voice acting, the acting in general. Another reason why, like, SAG-AFTRA still on strike, fighting for the AI protections. This is why.
This is
we
why.
need to protect this, and people who create art like this, because this is absolutely incredible. And I'm glad. I was honestly a little nervous. It's like, this is a game that came out in 2016. Is it going to be like...
A lot of media from 2016 does not hold up.
Yeah, I was like, how is it going to age? I'll never know. And I think it actually still holds up really beautifully.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
Yeah. So again, next week, we are going to be doing a one-shot. This is sort of an unofficial, if you needed to take a break for the next 2 weeks, because we've got, PAX and travel, August, abbreviated month because it's summer. We all are busy. But if you'd like to join us, or even if you just want to listen in, we're going to be playing Thank Goodness You're Here. Takes about 3 hours, I would say. Adventure game, not super mechanically intense. Very silly. I'm very curious to hear what you all think about it once we are done. And that is it. Yeah, and no Firewatch hangout. Maybe we'll chat a little Firewatch during the Citizen Sleeper one, just to be spicy. But if you want to hang out for the Citizen Sleeper catch-up / maybe some Firewatch, August 17th, Saturday at 3 p.m. Pacific.
Thank you so much for joining us here at Geeks and Grounds. As always, a pleasure to hang out with you. If you have thoughts and feelings and did not take the wedding ring, get in the comments. Let us know what you thought and what you felt playing this game. May the watchtower of your lives be more akin to Gondor lighting the beacons and less akin to a forest fire spinning out of control.
Yeah. Bye. Bye.